Clerk, if the next witness is ready, let's bring him in. Mr. Wham,
yes.
Thank you for your patience. First, for the record, please state your name and the position that you hold in your organization.
Okay, my name is Jolovan Wham. I'm a social worker with the Community Action Network.
Mr. Wham, the evidence which you will be giving today before the Select Committee will be taken on affirmation. So the clerk will now administer the affirmation.
You just stand and put up your right hand, and then you can recite the affirmation.
Oh, yes. I, Jolovan Wham, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence which I shall give before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Please be seated. Mr. Wham, welcome to the public hearing of the Select Committee on Deliberate Online Falsehoods. The focus of today's evidence gathering session is for us to pose questions to you. You have taken a solemn obligation to answer our questions truthfully. I will still call on Mr. Tong to begin.
Good evening, Mr. Wham. Thank you very much for being here, and
Yes.
I appreciate that you've waited for some time, but we are very grateful. You sent us a written submission, which we have looked at. Just want to ask you a few questions from there. The first is, in your overview, you make the point that you believe that this false information online, fake news, is not a major issue in Singapore. Now, we have heard evidence to the contrary from a selection of representatives from around the world, representing a cross-section of academics, professors, people who are researchers in this field, people who are from NGOs, as well as also from the tech companies who have come and given evidence in the past 2 weeks. And by and large, the acknowledgement is that there is a significant problem. There is an issue of false information traveling faster than truths. There's a tendency, heuristically, to accept the false information more so than truths. And even after that, when true information is published, there is less receptiveness to acknowledging the true information thereafter. So in the context of what we have seen, and the fact that also this platform using the false information, purveying falsehoods, which typically tend to be directed at social fault lines, like race, religious, and other social cohesion fault lines. Would you like to reconsider your position?
No. Perhaps you could give me examples of how it is a significant problem in Singapore, because you mentioned foreign academics, people testifying from abroad, and problems from overseas. But so far, we are yet to be convinced in Community Action Network that it is a significant problem in Singapore.
You see, issue of online falsehood is something that travels outside of geographical boundaries. You accept?
Well, yes, but how has it impacted Singapore significantly, that it is adverse to our society?
Yes, and we are a society that coexists with diverse racial, cultural, and religious backgrounds, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and we do know that the pattern of online falsehoods is to destabilize, or one of the objectives is to destabilize national interest, national security.
Has it been destabilized?
The question is not so much has it been. I would suggest to you that this committee is asked to look at the scope of the problem and also to make recommendations before there is a problem.
The has it been is an important question, because we need to look at empirical evidence.
Okay.
We need to look at real-life evidence and not speculate and draw conclusions from evidence that's not relevant to us.
So can I take it that your report is premised on the view that because there is no empirical evidence and because you're not persuaded that it is of any relevance to Singapore, that you therefore think that there is no need to deal with this question?
I think, of course, any kind of freedom of speech issue that could cause harm to society needs to be dealt with. Yeah, but we are just not convinced that the issue of online falsehoods is a significant problem in Singapore.
All I'm asking you is to confirm for me that that's how we should look at your report, and the recommendations that you make in there is premised on this conclusion.
Premise on what conclusion?
The conclusion, I'll read back to you what you said, that any kind of harm to society needs to be dealt with. You're not convinced that there is a significant problem of online falsehoods in Singapore. And further on, you say that there is no, that you need to look at the empirical evidence and real-life evidence and not speculate and draw conclusions from evidence that is not relevant to us, suggesting that there is no empirical evidence and, in your view, not relevant to us. And finally, you say that there is no question of evidence of how it has impacted Singapore.
Right, based on the evidence.
Based on these parameters, this is how we should look at the conclusions you have advocated in your report.
Yeah, based on the evidence that's been presented so far, it doesn't seem convincing.
That's not my question. I'm simply trying to ask you to confirm that how we should look at your report and the views you have formed in the report should be premised on your conclusion or your conclusion or your view that there is no empirical evidence, that it doesn't apply to Singapore, and that there is no question of you being satisfied there's any evidence of online falsehoods affecting Singapore.
The empirical evidence
I think we need to speak one at a time so that they can pick up the transcripts.
Sure,
okay?
sure.
So when I finish, then you speak.
Okay.
So the report that you've put forward and the views you've set out in there should be looked at entirely in this context. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I've got no further questions.
Mr. Wham, I think if there are no further questions, I would like to thank you.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. Well, I guess quite a lot of the grounds were covered in the earlier,
Oh, okay.
in some of it.
But I do have other views I would like to share.
If there are no
No other questions.
I think whatever is in your report is noted, in your written submission is
Okay.
noted.
But I've
if
waited since
it's-
2 o'clock until now. And then I just
No, I appreciate you
sit
waiting.
here
Thank you.
just give a 5-minute response. I don't think that's fair.
We have
Yes.
studied your written report
Right.
very closely. Thank you.
So, yeah, Mr. Wham,
And I came all dressed for this some more. You know? It's the first time I've worn a suit in years.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
so,
you for addressing
so as I mentioned from the onset, it's for any member here to ask any questions relating to your report. So in this case, if there are no questions from other members, I want to thank you. Indeed, it's been a long wait, but really thank you for your taking the time to participate and to contribute to the select committee process. Rest assured that your report, your submission have been noted and read by the committee. So in a few days, we will also send you the full transcript of today's proceedings. Do go through it, and if you have any amendment, please make the changes and you can send the transcripts back to us.
Well, can I ask a question, which is that when the legislation comes out on this issue, will there be similar consultations? Will we be called upon to comment? Will there be a similar discussion and debate? And will there be time to talk about it in Parliament? Because I think the last few months we've
Mr.
rushed
Wham,
so many bills
Mr. Wham,
through.
this select committee is for us to ask you questions,
Right,
not
right.
for the.
Yes, but I think as a citizen, you know,
what
as someone
we
who's
will
impacted by these
address all
laws.
this in due course.
Okay,
All right, so let's be patient.
okay, thank you.
Right, but I really thank you for the time that you spent. So again, thank you. Yeah, Clark, you could escort Mr. Wham out.